4 so far on this Super Tuesday.
And on the Republican side, this night belongs to George W. Bush.
CNN election headquarters in Atlanta. This is CNN's coverage of Super Tuesday, the largest day of primary and caucus voting in the nation's history, with 16 states and 1 territory going to the polls and caucuses to select more than 1,900 Democratic and Republican convention delegates. Now, from the CNN anchor desk, here are Bernard Shaw, Judy Woodruff, and Jeff Greenfield.
Welcome back to this, in effect, national primary. In a couple of minutes, we'll be talking with Texas Governor George Bush and his wife, Laura, but we want to bring you up to date on the Republican primary in New York State, probably the most closely watched. We cannot yet tell you whether Governor Bush or Senator McCain will collect more Republican delegates from New York State. What CNN can estimate is that more New York Republican voters cast their votes for Bush delegates than for McCain delegates. The problem in New York is that in the Republican primary, voters cannot vote directly for Bush or McCain. They have to choose among delegates. And there are congressional districts, as in, say, New York's Harlem, where there are relatively few Republicans. Maybe a few thousand will cast their votes for their 3 delegates. Out in Long Island, there may be a congressional district where tens of thousands cast. So trying to figure out the popular vote in New York will be very difficult. That's why we're measuring delegates. Once again, we can't tell you whether Bush or McCain will get the majority of delegates, but we can estimate that more voters in the Republican Party will have cast their votes for Bush than McCain. There will be a quiz to follow.
That said, let's look at the winners and where they did it. For the governor of Texas, he has won Georgia, Maine, Maryland, Missouri, and Ohio on this Super Tuesday night. For Senator John McCain, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Vermont. And for Vice President Al Gore, look at this: Connecticut, Georgia, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Missouri, New York, Ohio, Rhode Island, Vermont.
And joining us now from Austin, Texas, the gentleman who has won 5 of the 10 Republican contests we've been following so far tonight, Texas Governor George W. Bush. He joins us along with his wife, Laura Bush. Thank you both for being with us, and congratulations, Governor.
Thanks, Judy. It's good to talk to you again. It just seemed like yesterday we were in Los Angeles.
It does seem that way. Governor, I know you're going to be thinking about it. We have not heard yet from Senator McCain. We don't know how New York is going to turn out. We haven't had word yet, of course, on the state of California. They're still voting out there. But at this point in your contest with John McCain, there's still some pretty tough words hanging out there, if you will. John McCain saying over the weekend he's not sure if you're ready for prime time because of those breast cancer ads that were run in New York State. We also have Senator McCain saying your campaign is so Clinton-esque, it's scary. Again, a comment just a few days ago. Can you heal the rift in the party with language like this still coming from your opponent?
Well, first and foremost, Judy, I'm honored that so many Republicans turned out and independents turned out to vote in our primaries. I think one of the interesting stories is how excited people are about my candidacy. We've had a big step toward the nomination. I take nothing for granted. I'm looking forward to campaigning in my own state of Texas or my brother's state of Florida next week. And yes, well, there's time, and there'll be plenty of time for us to come together. Campaigns are tough. But this competition, I think, has been good for me. I know it's made me a better candidate. I know it's helped me sharpen my message. It has caused me to focus on talking about education and strengthen the military to keep the peace, a message of reform and renewal.
But when Senator McCain says your campaign is so Clinton-esque, it's scary that it sounds more and more like the Clinton campaign. I mean, there was a point not so long ago when you said that was just unacceptable coming from him.
Well, obviously, I don't care for that kind of characterization. But the good news is that the people who make the decision, the people who are showing up to vote, don't agree with that. And the reason why the turnouts are so huge is because people know I'm optimistic about the future of our country, and I've got ideas that are going to improve education and strengthen the military. One point of contention was whether or not we ought to share some of the surpluses or how much of the surplus with the people who pay the bills. I feel strongly that we need to make sure people get some of the surplus back so that the economy will continue to grow. I understand politics. This campaign to me hadn't been any rougher than any other ones I've seen. The good news is that it's now time to start focusing on the main contest, which is winning the White House.
Governor, this is Bernie.
Hey, Bernie.
Hi there. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Quite welcome. Clearly, you've excited your Republican base. But what can you do to reel in the McCain supporters, the moderates, the independents, the Democrats? What can you do? What will you do?
That's a big challenge, and tonight you're going to hear me talk about education. You see, I happen to think an education reform package appeals not only to Republicans and like-minded independents. When people hear me talking about education, say in a state like California, or any state for that matter, they're going to know I know what I'm talking about. I've got a positive record, and I've got a clear vision to make sure every single child gets educated. The other night on the debate in Los Angeles with Jeff and Judy, we had a good dialogue about education, and I'm going to continue talking about it. In other words, ideas are what are going to attract people to this candidacy when it's all said and done.
Governor, it is Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm fine. You know, I was thinking back to 1988 when a sitting vice president of the United States, you may remember him, about whom there were some questions about whether he could follow a charismatic president, faced off with a governor who had what appeared to be a good record and was able to win in part by presenting that governor as outside the mainstream. Now, it's pretty clear, I think, already that one of the things that this vice president is going to do to this Bush is attempt to say to you, you are a creature, whether you want to or not, of Pat Robertson, Jerry Falwell, a fringe. Do you think that one of your obligations is going to be to try to restate the themes of 1999, move more toward the middle now that, assuming that you have this nomination?
Well, first, I appreciate your qualification there, because the nomination is not yet secure. There are other states, and I'm looking forward to campaigning in them. My message is going to be the same today that it was in the beginning of the campaign. It'll be the same next November, and that is the message of compassionate conservatism, a message of reform in key areas, and a message of renewal of the spirit of America, Jeff. I think this country is anxious to have somebody who's not a part of this administration, somebody who can call upon the best of America. I look forward to the challenge. I know I've got a lot of work to do. And step one is to excite the party and excite people who share our philosophy. And step two will be to reach out across our party lines and bring people into the fold. I'm confident I can do that, and I look forward to the challenge against Vice President Gore.
Governor, just on the state of your campaign right now, you are evidently well on your way to winning the lion's share of the delegates tonight. But in order to get this far, you've had to run a very, very tough campaign. Some say a very negative campaign. You've spent, what, some say $60 to $65 million. Jeff mentioned the independent vote has primarily gone to John McCain and not to you. Are you at all concerned that if you're the nominee, you start this effort out in a weakened position?
No, not really, Judy. Matter of fact, I'm enthused by the results. I think when you all tabulate who's voting in what primary, if you tabulate how significant the increases are in our turnouts, and it's a credit to John as well as my campaign, there is a really good chance for us to take the White House. There's a lot of people who aren't happy with what's going on in Washington, D.C. People are hungry for a message of reform and a message of renewal. I keep saying that, but that's what I see and that's what I hear, and that's exactly what I'm going to bring into this campaign.
Governor, looking ahead to the California primary, the polls close in about 52 minutes. If you were to win the delegates in California, but lose the popular vote to Senator McCain, can McCain make a credible argument for staying in, hanging on, and fighting you?
Well, that's going to be up to John, Bernie. Far be it from me to put words in my competitor's mouth. He's a man who is going to have to make the decisions. I believe I'm going to win both. I believe I'm going to win the delegates, and of course that's the main task. After all, that's the crux of the nominating process. But what I hear and what our people tell us in California, the enthusiasm is large enough so that I'll be able to win the popular contest at all. But we'll have to see when the polls close.
Governor, when we look at the state of the union, to coin a phrase,
yeah.
You've got an economy that's, by most measurements, the best anybody can ever remember, and certainly most Americans think that. You have a crime rate that's plummeted, you have an abortion rate that's gone down, juvenile violence down. Can you ever remember a time when Americans changed parties when conditions seemed to be this favorable? Isn't that a remarkably heavy burden for any challengers that you might be to bear?
Well, there's no question, Jeff, if Vice President Gore's message is vote for me, I represent the status quo, and if people accept that, if they're happy with what they see and hear in Washington, D.C., then I'll have a tough road to hoe. I don't believe that's the case. I believe there are a lot of issues that people are concerned about. You know, as I say in a lot of my talks, the Dow Jones may be up, and I hope it continues to stay up, by the way, but there are failed schools in our society which diminish the hopes of many children and many parents. Education is a key issue in this campaign, Jeff, and I'm going to continue talking about it. And the good news is I've got a vision to improve our schools. You and I had a discussion about that the other night. There's a lot of folks who are deeply concerned about the state of morale in our military. They recognize that if we don't have a strengthened military, it's going to be hard to keep the peace. There are a lot of people who understand that welfare reform is just more than moving people from welfare to work, that we must rally the faith-based organizations and charitable organizations to provide hope and care for people in need. That's the kind of campaign I'm going to run, and we'll just see what happens when the people start filing in next November.
Mrs. Bush, Laura Bush, we don't want to leave you out of this interview at all, and I'm sorry if it seems that we've done that so far. I do want to bring you in, and I want to ask you about, you know, this has been a tough campaign, tougher than I think many people expected on the Republican side. I want to ask you how you're dealing with that, and in particular, a lot of criticism of your husband with regard to these breast cancer ads in New York State. How does all that go down with you?
Well, you know, I know what politics is like. I've been involved with George in politics. We've had 2 governor's races of our own and, of course, been involved in presidential races before. So I know what politics is like. I know that there are charges and counter charges, and that's just the fact of life in politics. That's what we knew it would be like when we got into it. I think it doesn't really bother me. I haven't been that disturbed by any of it. We've been in very tough races before, and you know, I knew what it'd be like.
So when John McCain says your husband's campaign is so Clinton-esque, it's scary, or when he says he's not ready for prime time?
Well, of course, I don't like that. I mean, who would? No one would like that. I don't like that, but I also know that's a part of politics.
Governor Bush, final question.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Bernie.
Please put on your politician's analytical hat and consider this question. We're going to go back to Connecticut. Now, your grandfather, Prescott Bush, was a United States Senator from Connecticut from 1952 to 63. Your father, former President Bush, won the Connecticut primary 3 times, 1980, 88, and 92. What happened to you tonight? How did you allow John McCain to take Connecticut from you, where you and your father went to Yale undergraduate school?
Yeah, it may have been the problem. I went to Yale. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to analyze the results. Bernie, I'm the kind of guy that tries to look on the bright side of things. I'm looking at Ohio. It sounds like in Jeff's introduction that I've won the popular contest in New York. We'll see how the delegates go. I think we've got a great chance in California. I know I'm strong in Texas and Florida. I hope my friends in Connecticut don't abandon me, but of course I wanted to win that state. I just got off the phone with Governor Johnny Rowland. I said, Johnny, I appreciate you fighting for me. I understand it was a tough road to hoe, but I'm not going to quit on Connecticut in the general election. You know, my good grandfather, gosh, I'm sure he's rolling over in his grave wishing his grandson had won the primary, but I think he's going to be proud of the fact that I did win his native state of Ohio.
Governor and Laura Bush, we thank you very much for all this time.
Thank you.
Good to have them.
Indeed. Now we go out to Los Angeles to John King, who was with the campaign of Governor Bush's principal rival, Senator John McCain. John?
Well, Jeff, one example that Senator McCain is expecting a very tough night tonight. He is not doing interviews. He has done interviews on every other primary night. So far, the McCain campaign saying he will not speak tonight. That, we're told, because his campaign is having now a serious reassessment of what to do. Still waiting for the California results, of course, but as the New York results trickle in, and as the McCain campaign sees that they will get at best perhaps a split of the delegates, one senior campaign official saying just a few moments ago, this night has just gone from bad to worse. Now, in his speech tonight, we're told Senator McCain will certainly say that, at least as of tonight, that he's in this race, and they say that he will outline his major themes, that in his view, the Republican Party is doomed to defeat in November if it does not adopt his campaign finance and other reform agenda, and also that it is doomed to defeat, in his view, if it does not separate itself from the controversial Christian right leaders like Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell. Senator McCain saying the party risks running an image of intolerance. He will make the case, we're told, if not directly, implicitly, that he believes that is why the party has lost the last 2 presidential elections. But, however, we are told the senator will not be as confrontational as he was the night of the South Carolina primary. The McCain camp doing the math tonight, they believe Governor Bush is about to win more than 400, perhaps even more than 450 of the 600 delegates at stake tonight in the name of one senior McCain
Okay,
campaign
John
official.
King.
He said tonight is about math.
John King, let me
Yes, sir.
interrupt you because CNN wants to make a call in the Republican primary in the state of New York. It goes to Texas Governor George Bush. When it's all said and done, we estimate that the governor of Texas will have won more delegates than the senator from Arizona. John, pardon the interruption.
That's quite all right, Bernie. That makes again the point. Senator McCain came into tonight saying he needed to sweep New England. He has not done that. He came into tonight saying he needed to win New York and the majority of the delegates. He has not done that. He said he needed a surprise somewhere else, perhaps Ohio or Missouri, both of those key November battlegrounds firmly in the Bush camp tonight. The last resort for the McCain campaign would be a victory in the popular vote here in California, beating Governor Bush anyway. Most McCain advisors believe that won't happen either. The Senator McCain looks like he might be shut out tonight in terms of accomplishing what he said was necessary to have a rationale to continue his campaign. He will head home to Arizona tomorrow. If California goes, as the rest of the night has gone for Senator McCain, very tough decisions ahead.
Yeah, John, it's Jeff Greenfield. It seems to me that we now know why perhaps Senator McCain was not going to give interviews. The staff had said all along they had to see what was going to happen in New York, New England, Ohio, and the beauty contest in California. And having now lost New York, Ohio, and not swept New England, it's hard to imagine what rationale they have other than we have a message to take to the Republican Party. But the rationale to fight on, to actually try to win the nomination, seems to be a glimmering.
Senator McCain himself said this week he would not fight on to be a protest candidate or a message candidate. He would only fight on if there was a realistic scenario that he could win the delegates to win the nomination. Again, if California, 162 delegates, if they go Governor Bush's way, as most people expect, Senator McCain will have a very difficult night tonight. More than 300 delegates up next week, most of them expected to go to Governor Bush. It takes 1,034 to win the Republican nomination. Governor Bush will be perhaps more than halfway there tonight with next week coming. So a very tough night for John McCain.
And John, very quickly, just to button this up, just a few moments ago here on CNN, Governor Bush said he not only expects to take the delegates, most delegates, winner take all in California, but to win the beauty contest, the popular vote.
Right.
Many McCain aides would not dispute that. They hope they outpoll Governor Bush here in the beauty contest, but in the past few days, they felt California slipping away. There's a great debate in the McCain campaign. Many believe he did not do what he should have done here in California after his victories in Michigan and Arizona.
All right, John King with the McCain campaign. Much more to talk about this evening, this day of the biggest voting in the year 2000, other than on November 7th, the day of the general election. We're going to look at the delegates after this break.
Coverage of Election 2000 is brought to you by Chrysler and Payne Weber. For expanded coverage, log on to CNN.com. Chrysler, engineered to be great cars. And Payne Weber. Thank you, Payne Weber.
Right now, when you choose from the lowest priced minivan to the ultimate, you can get $1,500 cash allowance or 0.9 financing for 60 months, which means you can save over $4,700 in finance savings on a new Chrysler Town & Country and the popular Voyager. Now get $1,500 cash allowance or 0.9 financing for 60 months on all new minivans at your Chrysler and Plymouth dealer today.
I've known this guy 5 minutes. He's already giving me investment advice.
For a recommendation on your portfolio, please press 3.
I'm gonna pay for this. What was I
Should my 401k be all stock?
Should my 401k be all cash?
Why didn't they write this last month?
My portfolio should be overweighted in game companies.
Why does this guy think what works for him is gonna work for me?
Thank you, Payne Weber.
So, you've managed to point and click your way into too much debt.
Why not point and click your way out of debt with a second mortgage from Ditech.com? Whether you have equity or no equity, good credit or not so good credit, Ditech has a second mortgage with absolutely no closing costs to help you lower your monthly payments now. So point and click your way out of high-interest, non-tax deductible credit card debt at Ditech.com.
Or call us at 1-800-71-FIXED. Ditech.com.
Thinking about your financial future? Who better to put your trust? Top tier in U.S. life insurance and growing fast. A major provider of annuities, investments, group and retirement planning. Managing more than $26 billion in assets while earning some of the industry's highest financial ratings. Jefferson Pilot Financial, helping you write the story of your life.
Polls have closed in all but one of the states holding a primary on this Super Tuesday. We've been telling you who won in each state on the Democratic and the Republican side. What we want to focus on now is the all-important delegate count. Without delegates, you don't win the nomination. For that, let's go to Wolf Blitzer. Wolf.
Judy, let's take a look now, first of all, at the Republican delegate count nationwide as a result of the races this evening, the primaries that we have already called. First of all, on the Republican side, remember, 1,034 are needed to nominate. Right now, we see George W. Bush with 459 to John McCain's 193. On the Democratic side, Al Gore with 1,005 Democratic delegates to Bill Bradley's 280, more than 2,000, of course, needed for the nomination. In New York State, we are now estimating that Vice President Gore will pick up 148 of those delegates compared to Bill Bradley's 67, 243 delegates at stake in New York State. In New York State, on the Republican side, we are at this point estimating that George W. Bush will win more delegates in New York State than John McCain, although we don't have any precise numbers yet at this point, only that Bush will do better than John McCain. Let's talk a little bit about New York State and what happened in New York State. Joining us now is Scott Reed. He was the campaign manager for Bob Dole's campaign 4 years ago. Tell us about this convoluted system that the Republicans have in New York State.
The New York ballot access laws are the most convoluted in the country. And as you remember, the Bush campaign attempted to keep the McCain campaign off the ballot. It was not until after the big New Hampshire victory where they gave in and allowed to let him on the ballot. But the secret in New York is to go out and recruit local, very popular politicians, congressmen, state senators, congressmen, because if you look at the ballot, that's the name on top. Nick Spano is a very popular state senator, and then you see in real small print underneath it, George W. Bush. It's getting folks like that to be the top of the ticket, and it's the positioning on the top of the ballot. McCain's down in the third position. Bush is right at the top. It makes a huge difference in a state like New York.
And it seems to have paid off, at least we're estimating, for George W. Bush in New York State. David Peeler, the ad campaigns, the races that we saw unfolding in New York State, it was an important element in this contest.
Well, Wolf, let's first look at the numbers, and then we'll talk about the tactics. The numbers in the state of New York were that George W. Bush spent over $500,000 in the last 2 weeks. John McCain spent about $400,000 in the last 2 weeks. Their tactics were to spend in the upstate markets. They did not spend any money in the New York City region. I think the exit polls show that George W. Bush has done very well upstate. John McCain has not. John McCain did better in New York City. What's entered this race, which is unique, is, again, the independent expenditure groups. We've talked a couple of times about how paid advertising can influence the debate. Well, the Republicans for Cleaner Air weighed in the last week and spent $1.2 million in the state of New York. $900,000 of that in the city of New York in support of George W. Bush's campaign. What did that do? It caused John McCain to get off message. What he ended up having to do was to talk about all of the money that was coming into the state, that was wrong. He couldn't stay on his own message. So that hurt him. The other thing that we saw in the state of New York, which I think is going to play well in the fall, is that negative campaign tactics worked here. We now know that the George W. Bush campaign will use those tactics. We've seen Al Gore use those tactics against Bill Bradley, so I'd expect that we'll see them used in the fall.
All right, Stuart Rothenberg, Coming into this evening, the conventional assessment was that John McCain does well in those open primaries. George Bush does better in the closed Republican-only primaries. That's what the assessment was until tonight.
Well, that assessment may well be wrong, Wolf. Hold those horses there. Let's look at the numbers here. A couple weeks ago, Republican insiders were suggesting that open primaries allowed Democrats and independents to hijack the Republican nomination. In fact, if you look at today's results, Bush won 3 open primaries in big states, Georgia, Ohio, and Missouri, and John McCain won a closed primary in Connecticut. And let's look at New England again. 3 New England states had semi-open primaries, that is, that Democrats could not participate. George Bush won Maine, John McCain won in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, splitting those states. Maybe the easy explanations aren't always right.
All right, well, let's go to Dwight Morris. He's in our Washington bureau. George W. Bush has spent a ton of money, Dwight. Tell us how much he's spent, how that breaks down, and obviously it's been a success so far this evening.
Well, through the end of January, which is the last point we have to measure absolute hard numbers, Governor Bush had spent roughly $50 million. We estimate that that figure has risen somewhere to between 62 and 65 million at this point. Now, the television advertising and radio advertising accounted for about 13.5 million of that, roughly. At the end of January, it is now, we estimate, up in the 22 to 25 million dollar range. That means that there's a huge amount, roughly 2/3 of this money, that's going elsewhere. And if you sort of tick off the major categories, one of the things that a lot of people overlook when they think about running a national campaign is that it takes bodies, and it takes phones, and it takes offices to run those national campaigns. Roughly $18 million so far of Governor Bush's money has gone just to basic overhead, paying salaries, $1 million in phone bills. Astonishing amount of money. And for the past 8 weeks anyway, people have been asking, how in the world do you burn $70 million and be in the position you're in? Governor Bush has shown us tonight. He's been running a national campaign from day one.
All right, Dwight, you'll stay with us for the rest of the night, but for now, let's go back to the anchor desk for more.
All right, Wolf, we've been listening to the assessment on the Republican side. When we come back, we're going to take a look and go to those candidates who've come out tonight to talk to their supporters. We'll be right back with that.
Who puts hundreds of millions of their own money on the line? All to help you get the best price? Knight, the world's leading market maker, where the trade gets done.
Your telecom integration.
Okay, it's not my call. We gotta look at Williams Communications. They can make LANs talk to WANs, talk to toaster ovens if you want. Plus, they've got thousands of feet on the street to keep our network working. Williams has it all. Data, voice, video, internet, integration, telepathy. I hear they have telepathy services, Sandy. We'll already know what our customers want. It's brilliant.
It's telephony.
Telepathy, I know.
No, telephony.
Telepathy, I've got it.
No, telephony.
I'm glad you like it.
What if every last one of us could access the internet and email without using a computer? Well, then every last one of us could be a webhead. Introducing the Eye Opener, the simple way to access the internet and email from a company called NetAppliance.
Investors say execution is the most important criterion for choosing a broker. So, who's executing your trades? Knight, the world's leading market maker, where the trade gets done.
We We've been talking a lot about the Republicans. We want to hear about the Democrats. We go first to Chris Black, who was with the Gore campaign in Tennessee. Chris, is it your sense that the Gore folks thought, look, he was the vice president, it was ours to lose, there was really not much doubt, or did they think there was a period back last fall when things looked really shaky for them? Chris, can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
My question...
What was the question?
That's all. I lose something in the original. I'll start again. My question is, do the Gore people now look at this race, which is effectively over, and say we had it in the bag all the time, or do they think that there were critical decisions that the vice president made that got them where they were now?
Oh, they absolutely think there were critical decisions. I think they always thought that in the end the vice president would prevail because he had the benefits of being an incumbent vice president, and they felt that the candidate was stronger than he appeared to be. But it was important for him to sort of get out of the shadow of Bill Clinton. It was important for him to move his campaign to Nashville. He had to sort of connect with the voters. The vice president told me in an interview Sunday that he thought the most important lesson for him was to learn to stop being a good vice president in some ways and start being a candidate and start reacting like a candidate instead of trying to toe the party line and be a good member of the Clinton-Gore administration, because he had to emerge as a candidate in his own right. Earlier today, he came down here actually almost 2 full hours before the polls closed in California, which was an unusual thing for this very cautious politician, but he wanted to be the first person on national TV to say the Democratic Party is the party of the mainstream. And he also said that his opponent, Bill Bradley, had called him earlier to offer his congratulations, and he saluted his rival.
I think that anybody who has heard Bill Bradley throughout this campaign has come away from the experience moved and touched by the strength of his commitment to healing the divisions in our country, especially divisions based on race. He believes in this healing heart and soul. I share his commitment to it. I have learned from his passion for it. Tonight I salute Senator Bill Bradley and Ernestine Bradley, his wife.
The vice president also said that he'd learned from his own mistakes on campaign finance reform. He called for comprehensive reform, and he said that he hoped that that this campaign would focus on issues in the fall campaign. Jeff?
Thank you. Let's take the other side of that story to Gene Meserve, who's with the Bradley campaign. Gene, the reverse of that question is it was always such a long shot to run against a sitting vice president in a president popular with his own party. But one of the Bradley folks said to me that they thought one of the most critical things that happened was when the AFL-CIO president, John Sweeney, and President Clinton kind of forced through an endorsement of the vice president. As you look at the campaign, why was that so critical in terms of shutting off the Bradley campaign from a shot at the Democratic constituents?
Well, as you may recall, Bill Bradley worked pretty hard to get that AFL-CIO endorsement, and that sort of sealed his fate. The labor movement being such a powerful force in Democratic politics, it added on to all those other advantages that Al Gore enjoyed as the vice president, including the trappings of office, the support of many elected Democratic officials, the support of the DNC, and so forth. I want to tell you, Jeff, that a few minutes ago we tripped a few circuit breakers here in this hotel ballroom, and it might be emblematic of this campaign. The lights aren't out completely, but they certainly have dimmed a bit in light of what's happened here tonight. I was told by an aide we would get an upbeat speech from Bill Bradley tonight, and we certainly did. He called this campaign a joyous journey. He said tonight we celebrate the beginning of a new politics in America, but he put his defeats tonight to Al Gore in the starkest of terms.
I just called the vice president to congratulate him on his victories tonight. He won, I lost. And on one level, I agree with Vince Lombardi when he said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Tomorrow, I'll consult with supporters around the country to get their thoughts and advice, and I'll make my plans known shortly.
But Bradley said he thought he had made some progress in transforming the nation, transforming politics, and particularly in transforming the debate. He said he had brought to the fore some core Democratic values, issues like health care and gun control and child poverty. He felt that he had definitely had an impact here. Embedded, however, in his remarks was one dig at the vice president. He said, "We don't ask where the wind is blowing and follow it to get quick approval. We begin," said Bradley, "with convictions." The senator said today say that he'll be consulting with his advisors tomorrow, and we will likely hear from him on Thursday. Given the length and depth of his defeats tonight, it's not too hard to define exactly what that speech will contain. Bernie, back to you.
Thanks very much, Gene. Now is a good time to ask a basic question in our coverage. What did people like Senators McCain and Bradley accomplish with their campaigns? What about the new voters? When we come back, we're going to check in with Bill Schneider to find out. Back in a moment.
Unique insight on the political scene. Mike McCurry and Tony Blankley. Another reason to stay with CNN, America's campaign headquarters.
Peggy Carpenter has a habit.
They call her the runaway bride.
Of running from her problems.
I think that I am screwed up.
But reporter Ike Graham...
I'm looking for Maggie Carpenter.
...is one problem she can't run away from.
I like his tight butt. Grandma? What'd I do?
Julia Roberts.
What do you think?
Richard Gere.
Fine.
Runaway Bride.
You're reading the newspaper upside down. That's better than fine.
In Demand. Pay-per-view for the demanding viewer. You rule.
Bill Hurd Chevrolet's new truck center has just received a huge allocation of new 2000 model Chevy Blazers. Get more room, more comfort, more safety and security features for less money. Right now, Bill Hurd has an amazing $199 per month lease available for a very limited time. You heard it right. Only $199 a month puts you in command of a new 2000 model Chevy Blazer. See Bill Hurd today. Just take I-24 to exit 59 and turn right at the Cracker Barrel.
CNN, America's campaign headquarters.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of this very extraordinary Super Tuesday. Question, Bradley, McCain, what good did they accomplish with their campaigns? And what about those new voters? Now, let's turn over here to Bill Schneider in our exit poll desk. Bill, what's the broad picture?
Well, the broad picture is that McCain did make a contribution to the Republican primaries. There were a lot of new voters in this year's Republican primaries. In fact, if we look at all of the 11 states that voted in primaries today, 1/6 of the voters were new voters. Republicans are asking, who are these people? Well, as we can see here, they were heavily McCain voters. In fact, only half of them were even Republicans. Now, of those McCain voters who came into the Republican Party to vote in the primary, how would they pick between Bush and Gore? The answer is barely half of them would vote for George Bush, about a third for Al Gore. The rest of them say they wouldn't vote. If McCain were the nominee, they would stay with John McCain. You're supposed to dance with the guy who brung you, but they wouldn't. Only half of them would stay with George W. Bush. They don't want to dance with him. Bush has to go after those McCain voters. Wait a minute. Now, here's an idea. How about putting John McCain on the ticket? Stranger things have happened. But wait a minute. There are other contenders, all those governors who supported George Bush. A lot of them think they might go on the ticket with George Bush. John Engler might have had that idea, but in Michigan we saw just a couple of weeks ago that those voters who said Governor Engler's endorsement of Bush was a very important factor in their vote, voted 3-1 for John McCain. Engler created a backlash against Bush. But today in New York, we found something very different in the exit poll. We found that about 10% of New Yorkers said that Governor George Pataki's endorsement of Bush and his campaign for Bush was very important to them in deciding how to vote. And those voters voted 3-1 for Bush over McCain, which means Pataki paid off. And if you know anything about how politics is done in New York, you realize that if someone does you a favor, you're supposed to do a favor back. So Pataki may end up on the list. Judy?
All right, Bill Schneider. Jeff, you know New York better than any of the three of us. How would you explain people giving Pataki credit for the Bush?
Well, he took the entire New York congressional establishment and put them on the line for Bush in a very publicized endorsement months ago and put his machine out to work, and that's one of the reasons.
But is that something that voters are conscious of?
Well, apparently enough to make a difference in these polls. I would point out, before we get too crazily speculating on tickets, A, John McCain is still in this race. Second, the last time there were two governors on a Republican ticket was 1948. It was Dewey and Earl Warren of California, and they didn't make it. So history says that that's, you often want to balance a ticket. Having said we shouldn't speculate, you notice I just have.
That's right. That's right. Well, and talking about balancing.
You're forgiven.
Thank you.
You're forgiven.
It's getting late.
And we're walking a bit of a fine line here because we're reporting results to you. So obviously, some candidates are doing better than others, and yet they're still in the race. Alan Keyes is still in the race. We haven't spent very much time talking about his campaign tonight. He obviously is showing in some of these races, but we don't have the raw numbers to give you. You look like you want to say something.
Well, I just think before we pass on the Democratic race, which appears to be certainly effectively over, we should say something about Bill Bradley and what happened, because it was, after all, 6 months ago that he was out raising Gore in money. The Gore campaign was in disarray. Gore was uprooting his campaign to Tennessee. Bradley was ahead in New York, ahead in New Hampshire, competitive. And when you ask what happens, it seems to me that you have to look at two things just quickly. One is a series of events. AFL-CIO endorsement for Gore, very important. The bad news about Bradley's heart condition, not medically serious, but politically damaging at bad times, just before New Hampshire. And then you had to add to that the overarching question. When was the last time a vice president who wanted his party's nomination didn't get it? Alben Barkley, 1952, in the pre-primary era.
And
he was running against some pretty big odds.
And stepping outside the White House in the Clinton administration, the economy.
Absolutely.
In this universal sense of well-being by most Americans. Those are 3-4 tough pillars to knock down.
And by
not to
the
mention
end,
John McCain and the oxygen being taken away by his candidacy. If you think we've got a lot to say about all this, just wait. After this break, you're going to hear from some people who have even more to say. The Capitol Gang. We can't wait. We'll be right back.
Quality audio and video to hundreds of websites like CNN, Quokka Sports, and NetRadio.com. We're Interview, the streaming media experts.
Let's see. College in 4 years, costs up 40% over the next 5. Somebody do the math here.
It'd be great if our money would grow as fast as these kids. I can't believe
Will paying for college be as painful as this? It's getting ugly.
Hey, that kid just dropped a pretzel? Because I like pretzels. I really like
We'll be able to help with their
I
education.
wonder if we should have put that money in a trust. Maybe we would have.
I hope she was kidding about college in Hawaii.
Thank you, PaineWebber.
The great thing about outboard motors is how they turn effortlessly. Imagine if we put them on a 142,000-ton ship. We did. ABB. Brain power.
At BASF, we don't make the golf clubs. We make them more powerful. We don't make a lot of the products you buy. We make a lot of the products you buy better. BASF.
When you were 6, it was roller skates. When you were 10, it was a bike. When you were 16, it was a car. When exactly did this happen?
Now it's easy to buy e-business tools direct from IBM at IBM.com or 888-SHOP-IBM. Like a ThinkPad with an Intel Celeron or Intel Pentium 3 processor. Call today and get free same-day shipping on select ThinkPads.
Polls close in the Golden State, the state of California, in just about 17 minutes from now. We're going to have calls to make when they do close, but for right now, we want to go to our own Capitol Gang and somebody I know well, Al Hunt.
Thank you, Judy.
George Bush's interview on CNN just a few moments ago, compassionate conservatism, Margaret, no hard right this guy. The rush to the center has begun, right?
Yeah. Well, that scampering sound is Bush back to the middle. I mean, we haven't heard much about the compassionate conservative. I mean, of course, we've never really known what it means. Does that compassionate conservative, does that come with Coke and fries? What is it? He's not defined it because actually Bush is going to want to fudge the issues, whereas Al Gore is going to want to define them and stress the differences between them because the issues favor Democrats. Soon as Bush discredited McCain for trying to get independents and Democrats, he now has to try to get them. And it's going to be hard because he went further than he needed to, probably in South Carolina, and now he's going to have to jerk back to the middle.
Bob, you know compassion. Tell us what you think.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the cliche is how far he went to the right in South Carolina. Where did he go to the right in South Carolina? He went to Bob Jones University for an appearance. I didn't hear him say anything in South Carolina that he hadn't said in New Hampshire, that he didn't say later in Michigan. I think his campaign has been consistent. It's not the campaign I think he should be waging. I think he should be waging a Republican reform campaign, tax reform, Social Security privatization, but apparently there's not the self-confidence in the Republican Party to do that. But I felt that you know the people, the news media generally will come down hard against anybody they think is the most conservative Republican candidate. And the most amazing thing out of all of this, Al, is that George W. Bush has ended up as the candidate of the conservatives. That is just amazing, because you would have thought if he had been rolling on to this nomination without opposition from a John McCain, he would have been sniped about from the right all the time. But as we saw in the interview tonight with Pat Robertson, he can do about anything he wants right now, and because he is the candidate of the right.
Kate, I think that's a really good point. He doesn't have any real ideological pressure on him now at all, does he?
John McCain permitted him very helpfully to define himself as conservative, because that's where the misgivings were in the base, and we see how conservative Republican primary voters are. I'm not at all sure they would have been as enthusiastically supporting George Bush if John McCain hadn't helped George Bush define himself by defending tax cuts, by talking smaller government, by having more conservative education reform proposal. So in that sense, it was helpful. But you could see tonight how grateful he is not to be talking about breast cancer and Bob Jones. He essentially laid out very thoughtful speeches all during the fall, trying to lay out both his record.
Do you think the breast cancer ad will come back to haunt him in the fall, Kate?
It doesn't even seem to have hurt in New York, frankly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, voters had the same number of voters thought both had been unfair. So it doesn't seem that John McCain's attack on that score resonated even in New York.
Let me ask this. I talked to several of the prominent politicians supporting John McCain this afternoon, and they all told me that John McCain has looked him in the eye and said he's not going to run as an independent. Now, the California polls haven't closed yet, but it's clearly a bad night for John McCain. I'm convinced he believes that right now, but I would guess over the next couple days and weeks, it's going to be a lot more tempting. We had a poll out that showed 1/4 of the people would support McCain in a three-way race.
I think there's a fight going on. I know there's a fight going on right in the McCain campaign right now, and we have Warren Rudman, the former senator from New Hampshire, who is not somebody who wants to have a rapprochement with the Bush people. He wants to keep fighting in one way or the other. On the other side, you have Senator Chuck Hagel of Nebraska, Congressman Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who want to bring these people Fred Thompson want to bring these people together, and so that's going to be an interesting tension because there's no question that John McCain is angry right now, and it's going to see whether in this case he's able to control his anger.
He's very bitter at what he thinks were really unfair Bush tactics. Do you think that's going to affect his decision, Martin?
Well, one of the reasons he's not speaking tonight is that he probably doesn't want to get himself painted into a corner on this. At the moment, you're right. He doesn't picture himself being a third-party candidate, and he's probably listening more to Chuck Hagel and Fred Thompson. But as the days go on, yes, they are together. His anger might be stoked by these other people, and he'll see, oh, if only I'd done this, if only I'd done that. I was so close. The momentum was going my way. And then, you know, human nature will kick in and at its worst, and you know, he may be pushed into something that could be disastrous for him.
I suspect he won't do it, but if he should, he would, I think, be formidable, because I think he could probably, Ross Perot could hand him the Reform Party nod. The one thing that would bring the Reform, the Perot and Ventura factions together would be John McCain.
I think that's probably true, and I think there are, given the issue environment and the moment, it's probably fairly favorable to a third-party candidacy, a personality biography candidacy like John McCain's.
Not to mention that we want to keep it going. Just
and I was just going to say, in addition to staff and some supporters who are really very angry and will be urging him to do this, you can bet his friends in the media just want this to keep going on and on.
Not to mention
they dread a straightforward Gore-Bush race, so there'll certainly be destructive voices telling him to do it. But it's not the first time that John McCain's been mad at the GOP establishment, and he seems to get over it, and he's pledged he wouldn't do it. And secondly, Republican voters are not mad at John McCain. It's not a mutual alienation.
This
he still has very high
campaign has changed John McCain. I heard a speech he was delivering in California, in which he was saying that what are the issues we have today? Well, the issues are hungry children. The issues, he listed a bunch of socially liberal Democratic concerns.
Conservatives are against hungry children?
No, what I'm saying that is not a Republican issue. That's I mean, and I guarantee you, the old John McCain, who replaced Barry Goldwater in Arizona, wouldn't be using that issue.
Here's the reason it's not a good idea. You need more than journalists unhappy. You need a certain segment of the population to be unhappy and to tap into, and there's just not enough of it for a third party to succeed.
Well, all right, there you have it, Judy. Back to you.
All right, Al Hunt and the Capitol Gang, this is certainly a group of journalists who are not unhappy. This is a big election night. When we come back, every minute that goes by, we're closer to those California polls closing. We're going to look directly at the California primary when we come back.
What do we got?
Straight line.
Give me 300 now. Clear.
There's a better way to toast a sub. Quiznos oven-baked classics.
Who is going to lead business out of the net? Not us. We'll let PSINet be the innovators. With their global private network, multi-currency, e-commerce, they want to be pioneers. So be it. We've been in business for 80 years. We give our customers what we want when we're ready.
With the internet, business either innovates or vegetates. You make the call.
A typical day for the IT manager. Everyone wants everything now. Luckily, CDW, your direct solutions provider, can custom configure computing solutions from 50,000 top name products. Like the HP Color LaserJet 4500, with the exceptional color quality and reliability of Hewlett-Packard Solutions. CDW will never leave you hanging. HP and CDW, the smart call for business.
With our most advanced four-wheel drive system ever, QuadraDrive, Jeep Grand Cherokee goes where you could encounter anything. So we tested for anything.
Come on, let's go. We gotta get home. It's getting dark.
1, the need to be seen at a distance when darkness falls. 2, the innovation. Clothing created from materials so amazingly reflective, it can be seen hundreds of feet away. That's 3M innovation. We help the world see things more clearly because we make the leap from need to innovation. 3M innovation.
Try Quiznos Mesquite Chicken with Bacon Sub. Tender, all-white chicken strips, bacon, cheddar cheese, tomato, onion, and cool ranch dressing, all warm from the oven. Quiznos. Toasted tastes better.
In less than 7 minutes, the polls close in California, the biggest prize of them all tonight. In a moment, we'll be talking about that. But we don't want to let this moment pass without mentioning something that may turn out to be as significant as any primary vote. In Arizona, starting today, the Democratic Party is letting people sign up, if you will, on the Internet, preparatory to letting people vote in the Arizona Democratic primary on Saturday via the Internet. This is the first time anywhere in the country that such voting has been permitted. When you think of the consequences down the line of registering via the Internet, voting on the Internet, it could wind up changing politics, root and branch in the years to come. With that little footnote, let's talk about a more immediate issue, California, with the Wolf Pack. Wolf?
Jeff, it's a huge prize, 162 Republican delegates at stake in California, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. Scott Reed, you used to manage the Bob Dole campaign 4 years ago. Tell us about what we can anticipate the complex nature of the voting process on the Republican side in California.
California is the big enchilada tonight. There are really two votes to watch. One is the Republican-only vote, which all 162 delegates will go to the winner-take-all. But as important, I believe, is what's called the beauty contest. California is very important symbolically to Republicans across the country. They want a winner. Republicans want a winner. We've lost the last two national elections in California, and in 1998, the state lost the governor's race hands down. That will be an important vote tonight to watch because it'll either give somebody momentum or it'll stop all the momentum. And the second issue to watch in California tonight is the important Latino vote. Both George Bush in Texas and John McCain in Arizona did very well in their re-election campaigns in 1998, getting 40%, as Bush did in Texas, and close to 50% in Arizona. The Hispanic Latino vote is crucial to the Republican Party as we go into this national election.
All right, Stuart Rothenberg, how important do you think the popular vote is going to be on the Republican side in California?
Well, apparently I think it's a lot less important than Scott does. If tonight had gone a little differently, I think Scott might be right. But I think that when you look back, Iowa and New Hampshire certainly are as much about momentum and expectations as spin as anything else, of creating an atmosphere. But right now, I think it's all about delegates. And when you see where Bush is carrying Ohio, Missouri, Georgia, Maine, Maryland, doing well in New York, you see he's at around 460 delegates was the last count I saw. If he wins California's Republican delegates, that takes him well over 600. Then you look next week, you see Texas and Florida, 200 delegates, two good states, more southern states. If the fat lady isn't singing now, she's starting to yodel. I think it doesn't much matter whether or not the governor wins the popular vote, though of course he would much prefer to.
All right, those 162 delegates are coming up in the next few minutes. We should get a good sense what's going on in California. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Wolf. Well, Regis is losing Kathy Lee, but thank God Bill Press still has Mary Madeline on Crossfire.
Oh, Mary. Don't take that sitting down.
Mary, you want to slap him, I know. All right. Mary, I just have to say, listen to these guys talk about the California primary. I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but in 1994, this initiative was on the ballot. I was Democratic state chair, opposed it. The Republican state chair, John Harrington, opposed it for this reason, because it's this crazy system where anybody can vote for any candidate, but only Republican votes count for the delegates. So we could end up, we'll know soon, right? George Bush is going to win the delegates, it's pretty sure. But McCain could win the popular vote. Does that count for anything? Does it give him more than bragging rights? I'd have to say, if he had won Ohio and the beauty contest, maybe. If he had won New York and the beauty contest, maybe. But even if he wins the beauty contest here in California, which is unlikely, without winning those other states, I just don't think bragging rights take you very far.
I'm so loath to agree with you, Bill Press, but of course, you are right. These silly processes and front-loading the process and opening up the process has done nothing but confuse the voter and de-energize it. On the other hand, it has, as has already been noted tonight, really solidified early the base for Bush, which wasn't there for him, has energized the base, that everyone's toing and froing about how much money he spent, but he already has his structural base in place for the general election, and he already has his general election in place. And by virtue of this primary, this hard-fought primary, he's a better candidate. So no matter what happens in California tonight, absent McCain doing better elsewhere, I don't really think it matters, and it will be confusing to voters in any ways. The last polls we were looking at, Bush was coming up in the popular vote.
Well, I think both Bush and Gore are stronger candidates based on the primary contests that they've had and that they've won, apparently. But, you know, the other thing that I find significant tonight is that John McCain did not get as many Democrats tonight because of the fact that Democrats, look at Ohio and here in California, stayed home. They stayed home, I think, because they're more energized by Gore. I think it speaks well for the Gore campaign that they've been able to get the message out to Democrats. By the way, organized labor deserves a lot of credit for this, for organizing those precincts. And they've got the message out. Don't go anywhere. We got the winning candidate. Stay here. And it had hurt John McCain, and it helps.
Where did you hear this first? They weren't crossovers. They were cross-dressers. These Democrats are never going to vote for John McCain. Here's what John McCain's doing tonight. You got the Luke Skywalker faction saying, let's fight on, or the alternative is, let's get pushed in the Reform Party. Then you've got the statesman faction saying, you know what, John? You've always been about duty, honor, country. We can be a statesman now, and my prediction is that John, knowing John, he is a statesman, and that's what he's going to do, take that
Well,
road.
I have to tell you, having been a candidate once, the toughest spot, and he's in it now, and so is Bill Bradley, is when you know you're the best. You know your message is the best, but you know it hasn't worked, and you got to make that tough decision. And I'll tell you, John McCain's not going to become a Reform Party candidate. That's it for us. Mary Madeline and Bill Press. We're back to Jeff Greenfield in Atlanta.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Bill. California is coming up in just a moment. Stay with us.
Thursday, in a CNN Encore presentation, Christiane Amanpour returns to Iran on a revolutionary journey. CNN Perspectives, Thursday, 10 Eastern on CNN.
I love movies. But you know what I don't love? Going to the video store. So I don't have to do this anymore. Because now there's digital cable
And the Encore Movie Networks with nearly 500 movies a month. All arranged by theme like the aisles of a video store. With all these movie choices, I'll rent less and save money. So call now for the Encore Movie Networks and kiss the video store goodbye.
Ready for hot Las Vegas-style casino action? Then there's only one place to play. Players Island Casino, Nashville's nearest casino, and Nashville's favorite casino. We've got the latest and hottest slots, great table games, exceptional dining, and the friendliest service around. Plus, now we're dockside, so you can come and go as you please. Players Island Casino, across from Paducah in Metropolis, Illinois.
I'm special. I need McClure's. I need McClure's. McClure's, Nashville's only true fashion specialty department store. McClure's. McClure's. Charge.
Public